Okay. I don't know if that's in order. Oh, and Kate joined us just on time. Great. Okay.
Hello. Yep. Thank you.
Yeah. Hi, Kate. We're just starting. So calling to order the February 7th Clean Water Commission meeting, just about 6:35 p.m. First item is roll call and introductions. We have 3 new members here tonight. So maybe as we go around, we can just do a very quick, in the interest of time, a very quick introduction, just I guess for the benefit of all of us. So I'll go ahead and start. Matt Jones, Chair, present. I was the chair of this body last year, luckily enough for somebody. I am the chair this year. This is my fifth year on the Clean Water Commission. When I do a variety of other things when I'm not on the Clean Water Commission, a number of volunteer activities as well, but I'm a self-employed strategy and performance consultant that does work in the public sector. I've done that for a number of years. Enjoy doing that. So Bob, I'll hand it over to you. You're next.
I'm Bob Trost, pleased to meet you all, and I'm the current vice chair. I fill in for Matt when he's hiding somewhere and doesn't want to be present. And I've been a member of the commission for a couple of years now, and I'm entering my 3rd and last year of my current appointment. So nice to meet you all, and I hope you enjoy being here. I know we're glad to have you all on board.
Yep. Maybe I'll just go down the list. Alejandra?
Hi, everyone. Nice to meet you. Buena vida cuecha, tipa and nafu. My name is Alejandra Cortez. My pronouns are she, they. I am so excited to be here. I have been in the environmental realm for around 12 years. I previously was a naturalist for Metro Regional Government. I'm now doing community enhancement grants in the region, which is exciting work. And yeah, this is my 1st year on the commission. So excited. And yeah, I care deeply about environmental stewardship and hope to support in making a lot of great things happen in our area.
Great, welcome. Actually did a lot of work for Metro in solid waste and recycling. We can talk about sometime.
I'm Ted Gaethie. This is will be my 2nd year on the commission. I was appointed last year, served 1 year already. Prior to that, I was involved with the Watershed Alliance, served on the board of directors and chair for many years. Got termed off this year, finally, but it's a great organization. And since 2018, I've been involved with the Friends of Vancouver Lake advocacy group to see if we can get the ball rolling again for cleanup efforts on Vancouver Lake. Prior to my semi-retirement some years ago, I was city attorney for the city of Vancouver for more years than I care to remember. But I'm glad, and we've got brand new folks on the commission, and I welcome you all.
Thanks, Ted. Jeff.
I'm Jeff Kesnick, retired and spend a lot of my time volunteering and helping out with various environmental efforts, a lot having to do with trees. I also serve on the City of Vancouver Urban Forestry Commission. And this is my starting 3rd year on this commission.
Great. Sandra looks like not present. Looking online, don't see her. Kate, I see you online.
Hello. Yeah. Hi, everyone. My name is Kate. This is my 2nd year on the commission. I am a water quality data analyst, a consultant. I work primarily in the Klamath Basin, but also in other places in Northern California and Southern Oregon. But I live up here in Clark County near the Lewis River. I'm originally from the area. I've done a lot of volunteer work when I did my undergrad here. So I'm happy to have just moved back about 2 years ago from the university or from Montana, where I got my grad degree. So yeah, happy to be back and working in water in Clark County again.
All right, thanks, Kate. Rudy.
I'm Rudy Salakuri. I'm currently the conservation director for Friends of the Columbia Gorge. I serve on too many boards. I was a single parent working my way through school while working full-time, so I never really lost that energy. I'm on the board of Columbia Riverkeeper, Columbia Land Trust, Vaudeville Environmental Foundation. I was on the Fish Recovery Board, and I was the chair of their Technical Advisory Committee. I don't know where I am and what I'm doing at the moment, but that's who I am. I worked for the Cowlitz Tribe for nearly 15 years. I built a habitat restoration and conservation program for them. I started out with a $10,000 tree planting grant, and it's over a $40 million little enterprise now, so I was done with that.
Nice.
And here I am, this is my first meeting.
Okay.
Happy to
Yeah,
be among
welcome,
you.
welcome. Last but not least, Phil.
Well, great to be here and meet everybody. I'm Phil Struck. I am self-employed consultant, surface and stormwater management primarily, for local agencies in the Puget Sound region. I've been involved in natural resource and surface water issues for 30-some years, and I'm really looking forward to working with all of you.
Welcome. We're really excited to have all of our new members. Really, really excited. Lots to do tonight. So please don't be shy about input. I don't think that'll be a problem with our new members, but I always like to say that, and I'm happy. Okay, so next item, we have approved the December 6th meeting summaries and January 31st meeting summary. Do we have to approve the January 31st? Okay. Okay, so the December 6th, I was not here, so Bob chaired that. So if those who were present, which, boy, only a few of you.
You still might have to vote.
Yeah, okay.
I would move to approve the December meeting.
I'll second.
All right, okay. All those in favor of approving the December 6th meeting summary as it stands? Aye?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, meeting summary is approved for January 6th. The January 31st meeting summary, that was our new commissioner training, correct? Just giving it a quick. Okay. As chair, can I make a motion to approve, right? Yeah. So I'll motion to approve as written. For those that were present, is there a second?
I'll second.
I'll
Thanks,
second
Rudy.
that.
Rudy sec- Okay, 2 seconds. All
Sorry.
those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, January 31st meeting summary is approved as written. Next order of business, public comments. Alice, are there any public comments submitted?
No public comment.
Okay, don't see any members of the public in the audience or online, which moves us into section 4. So that's Devin, manager's update.
Awesome. Thank you all for being here today. I'm so excited to start and already be in the second month of my first calendar year as division manager. I can't believe it's already February and it feels like it's already March. So I promise to keep my remarks brief. And so hopefully you had a chance to see the division report that I put together. This one was a little shorter than the last one. Normally, so for our new members, I tried to put together a report on all of the highlights and milestones that our staff have achieved between commission meetings and really highlighting where we're at on our large projects. For this division report, I took more of the approach of providing an outline of the things that we'll be working on this year to help inform the work planning session that we have today. But I do want to share a few really big updates. Last week, we had a work session with County Council to kick off our rate study. So we've talked about that previously. It went over really well. There's still a lot of work to do. But at that work session, the goal wasn't to get any council decisions or input. We simply went over our timeline and scope of work for the rate study so that they understood where we're headed, when we need to achieve a rate increase by, and also how we'll be bringing information to them throughout the next 8 months for them to make some decisions about where we will focus our work. And so if you read the division report, this is our top priority for this year. Right now, we're expecting a fund balance depletion by as early as 2026, which means that our expenditures are exceeding our revenue. And so our division is unique in that we're funded solely on the clean water fee. So that fee is assessed on a per parcel basis during the tax assessment. And, without additional revenue, our concern is that we can't continue to increase the services that we provide. And our goal is my goal as a division manager is to keep moving us forward and building, the premier public works division that I was promised, that we would be working towards when I took this job. So as far as next steps, we've been working on developing cost estimates or what I've been calling our unmet needs and compliance risks, or our gaps in our program. So, as you all know, our work is driven by the stormwater permit, and we're required to report our progress to Department of Ecology. And if there are shortfalls, that's where we have risks and where we see opportunities for improvement. And so we're focusing in those areas, and also looking at new permit requirements that we're expecting to have come into place later this year, and trying to look at what will it cost to implement those new permits, because there's a lot of new things that ecology is having us do, but we're not getting any new staff. So we already know that with our staff of 18, that we're stretched pretty thin as it is, and so adding more work will be challenging. So as we're developing those cost estimates, our plan is to bring level of service scenarios to the council in April for them to start making some choices about what our program works on and how much that would cost. So my focus is that we're not decreasing our level of service. That is not an option because we can't, because that would cause more compliance risks. And if anything, we need to do more. So my focus is on providing some options that will give them the good, the best, and the excellent. There may be some hard choices. We are already looking at what happens if we don't get everything we need. Are there other ways that we can creatively increase our revenue or partnerships? And so I just wanted to bring that out as a number one priority, because our goal is to have a council decision on a rate increase by August, which means that there's a lot of work to do in the next 6 months, and a lot of work with council that we'll need to be doing, and with the commission. So that is our a quick update on the rate study. Happy to answer questions or get into more details. I will also say we had a really successful work session today with council about a draft interlocal agreement with the city of Camas for work on Lacamas. To quote Councilor Medviji, he said that was perfect, which I don't always hear from him. So I'm glad we're on the right track. There still are questions about how are we going to pay for this. And so I think we reiterated to council that as we're developing these new interlocal agreements and we're looking at lake management in both Vancouver and Lacamas Lakes, the decisions about what we do is directly linked to what they decide to include in our rate study. So there will be, as we're pursuing all these efforts, I'll be working to constantly connect all these new asks and requests for work from our council back to the need for our rate increase. So that's just a quick update from me.
I have a question about the rate study. There was some question about whether the council was going to approve it being done by a third-party contractor or in-house, or a combination of the two. Where did the council end up with that?
That's a great question. So we had originally, when I started, there was money in the budget, money that we were requesting in our supplemental budget to hire a consultant to do the rate study. What we heard from our council that there was a desire for us to work internally with our auditor's office to scope what a rate study would entail before moving forward and hiring professional services. And there was also a recognition that we have an existing rate model and that we need to look at that tool and determine its capabilities before bringing on a consultant. Unfortunately, as you're all aware, council did not approve any new staff or any new professional services contracts for us. in our last budget request, which kind of put us at a, what do we do now? And what I can say is that, we rolled up our sleeves and we've been working very closely with the auditor's office to, crack open that rate model, refine it, to start developing our cost estimates, to look at all of the, forecasted needs. You know, we're accounting for inflation, and we're very lucky that we have a very talented finance lead on our team who's been helping us start some of that work ourselves. So that's a long way of saying we were not permitted to hire a consultant to do the rate study.
So if you're relying on the model, and this was the model that created the lowest stormwater rates in the state of Washington, does that model need to be revised or updated or improved in
Correct.
some way?
And we are working on that.
Okay.
And we're also, so the rate that was determined back in the 2000s was based on, I won't get into what it was based on, but I don't know if it was accounting for the duration at which it needed to fund for. It was very limited, and we are looking, right now we're only looking at 2024 to 2029. I think but what we are building into our assumptions is the more frequent touch points with council to increase our rate incrementally or build in some sort of index that will automatically increase it with inflation rates, so that we are accounting for change over time as our needs evolve, so the rate will be adjusting accordingly. I think right now, if council said, no, you're not going to increase the rate, that would be really unfortunate. But we've already been looking at, okay, if we just accounted for inflation, where should we be at? And I think right now our estimate is approximately $58 instead of $47. That's still not great. But revising that rate model and then doing the more complete financial forecasting to put into that model to say this is our target of where we need to be. That's what we're currently working on between now and hope to finish by the end of March. Right now we're estimating we need almost $30 million more over the next 6 years that we haven't budgeted for. So that's the funding gap that we're estimating, and approximately 20 FTEs that we need to provide the services that we hope to achieve.
Why are they having you work with an auditor's office to scope a study?
So our auditor is our chief financial officer.
Okay.
So we're working with our chief financial officer and his staff.
Other questions for Devin? So what's the timeline for the rate study, you hope?
Yeah, that's a great question. Let me pull it to this thing I put together. So our hope is to, I'm just kidding, you don't have to open it up. Our plan is between now and March is to finalize our cost estimates, and we think we're probably about 75 to 80% of the way there on our target. And then to chop our cost estimates into scenarios. So, you know, scenario A is do a little bit more, but not much more. Scenario B, substantial change, versus scenario C, which would be we're going to do it all. Kind of where I want to be personally, and commission will have input on which scenario you want us to work on to take to council. But we hope to present those to council in April for feedback. What we found is it's strategic to take things to them more incrementally ahead of a big decision. And then with that feedback, our plan is to establish the rate for their level of service scenarios to bring back to them in June for their final input, to ultimately adopt the final rate in August. So we need to have a new rate by October, because that's when they begin to do the assessment to calculate out what the fee is to include it in the February 2025 tax assessment. So it's going to be a lot of work. But it is, again, our number one priority right now.
So in the last couple of years, there's been mention of aging infrastructure and looking at new ways to inspect that infrastructure towards repairs ahead of time before it becomes an emergency. Will we have data along those lines in time for these discussions coming up with council?
That's a good question. So, what you're describing, we talk about as our facility and infrastructure asset management. So we have a facility asset management program where we have inspectors out looking at all of our, bioretention facilities, whales, all of the BMPs,
But one of the key things I think that was brought up in the last couple of years was underground pipes.
exactly, and that's the point I was getting to, that, we do not have a pipe asset management program. Right now, we have purchased a pipe crawler, which I think we should name Piper. And we are, in the process, simultaneously developing, a pipe asset management program to begin to deploy that pipe crawler and to establish criteria for, what conditions, of a pipe would be considered more. We have to start by, okay, what is critical to fix now versus what should be fixed later? And some of that's dependent on what the pipe's made out of and the soil type. So we're beginning to establish that program now. I think we are planning, we don't know what that needs going to be, but we do know is that we have 500 miles of pipe, and the valuation of that infrastructure is approximately $135 million at least, and is about 60% of our total infrastructure portfolio. So we're making that very clear to council. I think they're very interested, given the sinkhole challenges that we saw in the news recently. But we don't have all of that information, and that's the challenge, is that we are trying to forecast for engineering needs that we aren't fully.
That learning process is gonna take time.
Yeah, it will. But what I can say is that, Jeff, our infrastructure manager, is working with, our operations team, and they're coming up with a pilot plan to go into an area that has the pipe type and the soil type that would be conducive to, pipe corrosion and challenges, to just start driving it around and see what we have to give us a sense of what we're dealing with, and to help us refine the criteria that we'll use to ultimately, to begin to survey the whole system.
Thanks.
I have a question. Okay. Is this the first attempt at making a rate adjustment, or have there been previous instances, and are you allowed to try again if it falls through this time?
All good questions. So the rate's been in place since 2000. It's only been increased once, and it was done in 2015. And I think the original rate was like $33, and they bumped it in 2015 to $47. So this would be, the first time in about 10 years. So it has been done before, but most some utilities change their rate annually. So we do think we would love to establish a rate that will get us through 2029. However, we want to make it very clear in our code and our communications with council that this could have to be updated more frequently, potentially even as much as annually, depending on what we find in our pipe program.
Okay. Other questions for Devin? All right, thanks, Devin. I don't see Eric for our education and outreach report, so.
He's not going to attend tonight.
Okay, all right. Then that moves us to you, Alice, staff liaison report.
I will just mention it is in your packet.
Oh, is it?
And for our new members, so Eric Lambert is our education and outreach lead, and for every meeting, he summarizes the upcoming events as well as ongoing outreach efforts and some of the milestones he's achieved between meetings. So if you're interested, take a look, and if you have questions, I'd encourage you to follow up with Eric directly. And if there are questions, we can come back to this. Sorry, he's not here today.
Right. So, to go over a few things, I went over a little bit on the OCMA, training requirements. And, I've gotten one of the certifications back from one of the new members, and I will be, getting a hold of any of the existing clean water commissioners if they need to have it updated. But if I could get the others to do it in the next 80, 90 days, that would be great. And as always, I mentioned it earlier, please CC me and I'll regarding the Clean Water Commission, and use your Clean Water Commission email when making those, doing anything with clean water business, because as a publicly appointed commission, we're subject to public records request. So it's much easier and so much less intrusive if they're not having to go through your personal email. And I always do that every year, have that with everybody. As Devin mentioned, there were the staff, and there was links in your in my update with emails that have the the link for the rate study. One of the new things is I wanted to go over some thoughts about what you want to do for 2024 special meetings, and if you want to have and how you want to set up your meetings. And it may be something that can be, we can address it at the end of this meeting, in that we've had in the past a couple different ways of handling it. We've had a number of requests from commissioners to have presentations from staff, the Vancouver Lake Management Plan explanation, the other one that was just requested in December, the bioretention filters.
I think the FC.
Yeah.
The
phosphorus.
phosphorus.
So, and so that's one of the things that, just recently, has been requested, and we've had a number of other ones. And, there may also be some things where potentially you may want to have, Rod come in and talk about the new, permit that's coming out, that'll go live in August. So what I would like to find out from you is, would you like to have smaller presentations at your meetings, or would you rather have, we used to have where we would have them also have a spring and a fall special meeting, and I would arrange to have 3 to 5 presenters, depending on the topic and how it was, come in, and that meeting was basically an educational meeting, and then you would have more time in your meetings for this. We've done it both ways. So let me know how you would like to proceed with that. I'm good either way. I'm also good with doing other ways of handling it. So let me know. And then also, if you are interested in, pre-COVID, we used to take the Clean Water Commission out and do, a field trip where we would go do site visits and do different kinds of, we've had things like going to see the runoff cartridge filters and stuff that the monitoring used to
pull-ins do after every rainstorm on Highway 99. As well as going to see some of the major projects that we had worked on. 2020, we were supposed to go and focus on the east side and look at some of the things there. Obviously, that went sideways. And last year, the commission decided instead of doing a field trip that we would like to do the LACMA Symposium, LACMA Watershed Symposium. So for me to be able to help support you, I would like to get some direction. It may or may not need to be, and I know that there is a lot of work that also needs to be, and there potentially could be some other special meetings where the division needs support from the commission. So if you could let me know, and even if it's just spitballing it now, great, and if not, after you have your goals and priorities and action plan figured out, that would be fine as well. So that's one of the things that I'm looking forward with direction on. And then the other thing is there's a new requirement that I didn't know about until mid-December. We need to do for our Title VI reporting, which if you received any federal money, any government agency or NGO that receives federal money has to report your the Title VI aspect of reporting for, I'm trying to remember now, race, national origin, sex. There's like there's 3 or 4 of them that you have to do, and there is a survey that I need to have, because one of it is we need to give them what our composition is, kind of the basic thing that we all fill out for many things. And so I will be sending that out here in the next couple of weeks for you to do that and get that back to me so that I will be able to have that for when we do the screening. If you would prefer, I can have it sent directly. I can have you have it sent directly to our Title VI coordinator and leave me out of the loop. That is completely fine with me. Whatever you feel the most comfortable and confident with. And I can also have a number of pieces of paper and or mail them to you and have you all return them in blank envelopes. Whatever is your comfort, you know, I never have a problem with it, but maybe somebody does. So,
Could I just ask a point of clarification? We don't get any money. We don't get any federal money.
I know.
Why
Well,
are we being asked?
actually, the county gets a lot of federal money.
But we don't.
The county,
So we are not a county.
you are an appointed official, and that is part of one of the things that was this last year that we are now being required to report as part of our Title VI reporting to the state of Washington, who then rolls it up to the feds. So it's all just trickled on down.
All right.
So, I didn't know, I guess we were supposed to do it last year, but I didn't know about it until December, after we'd already had our meeting, and people were already gone.
It might be challenging for people in the group to answer how they want to answer those questions without knowing what the questions are.
It's gonna be
We can bring us, let's, I feel
Right.
I'm sensing some
Yeah.
hesitancy, so we can always, bring a copy of the form, and then,
I
if you have
will
a
email it,
preference
yeah.
for how you disclose that information,
Okay,
or who you disclose it to, then, we'll make sure that we accommodate that.
okay.
and, so, and then, I think that is the rest of my, my update for now, my report.
Okay. All right, questions for Alice? All right, thanks, Alice. Okay, moving to unfinished business, we have a 2023 annual report. It's going to tie it into number 6 as well, but I mean, Bob, you're our annual report lead as far as doing all the most of the hard work. I guess I have to. I'll be quiet now.
I
don't want to say it.
I guess I would suggest that we table this.
Okay.
If you take a look at our annual report, you'll find out that a lot of it used to be focused on the work groups, which we've changed the bylaws and moved away from having. And what we began to do last year was focus on specific groups for specific items that we choose to do in the given year. And so the annual report is going to depend, at least the part that changes every year, almost entirely on what we identify at this meeting as the priorities that this group wants to focus on for the coming year. And we have the bulk of our discussion that's coming up on those particular items. And when that gets settled, then basically the progress report will write itself. The rest of it's all water under the bridge, so to speak. I think everyone recognizes that last year, for the most part, we devoted a great deal of time and attention to pulling off the Lacamas Lake Symposium. For those of you that are new, that was actually opposed by the Public Works Department of the county when we began the initiative. And we pushed forward as a commission independent of the county's administration. And in the end, I think it was very well received. The county commissioners felt that it was well worth doing, and we feel that we accomplished our goals in increasing cooperation and coordination in dealing with Lacamas Lake. And this bleeds over into one other thing, if I can do that, because one of the things that came to light in all this is the original county code that establishes this commission is one that has kind of been lost. And so Matt and I had suggested that we go to the county commissioners, and we had a meeting with them, or one of them, and discuss revising the code. The code predates the time when there was a county manager, and a number of other administrative things have taken place. But the original code that establishes the commission is very broad-based and basically has a very holistic approach to watershed management. If I can put words in Devin's mouth, perhaps, the county Public Works Department has the view that we are supportive of the Clean Water Division, and that basically is the extent of our obligation and responsibility. The commission as a whole last year very clearly stated that it had a much broader perspective on the health and welfare of watersheds within Clark County, and that their role went far beyond what the division has as its immediate needs and function. When we took this to the county commissioners, and Matt and I included a discussion of this when we gave last year's progress report to the county commissioners were very supportive of the broader role. And so what we believe needs to be done is this needs to get clarified, and we requested a meeting to revise the county code to reflect both the current administration, who we're responsible for and what we're responsible for, and all that stuff. That has been put on hold despite our best efforts to get that done, and it's been held up again within the county administration. They feel there are other priorities, and I full well understand that. For example, the rate change thing, that makes good sense to me, and there's no doubt that part of this commission's obligation is to support and to provide help where we can to the Clean Water Division of the county in achieving their goals and objectives, and that is a big part of it. But we do believe there's a much broader part. We believe the Lacamas Symposium that we got behind last year is an illustration of how we can bring a broader community together to achieve the goals that we believe we're charged with, which is the health and well-being of watersheds within Clark County. So to that end, our annual progress report depends in part on what we lay out for a work plan for this body for this year. And that's really what this meeting is for, the first of the year. I probably said way too much.
I appreciate that. That was great.
Yeah.
Here's the thing, sorry, make sure you would still need to, in the annual report, talk about the work groups that actually were called and did work last year. And so, yes, we got rid of the standing work groups, but there's still the LACMAS work group and a number of the others, and the bylaws and all those. It needs to be as part, because that was a lot of work, and that should not be lost. And so that needs to be part of it. I mean, yes, we got rid of the standing work groups, but the others, the special ones, it should be at least be noted. And then the other thing I totally forgot was I will need to get pictures of everybody. And, because the goal hopefully will do after this is Bob will get it drafted and have a chance, he'll get it done, and then I can finish it up so that you'll be able to vote on it at the April meeting. Otherwise, it'll be June, and then won't be able to have.
So when is the tentative timeframe to present this to the council? For us, when we have to present it, when, if we're voting on it in April?
From what I understand, so that you are able to directly work with county council, and what other county commissions and advisory boards do is, they directly request that through the proper channels, and we can make sure that you get that paperwork, and then you can actually go ahead and request it. That way you are not feeling, or there isn't a feeling of gatekeeping or any of that, and that way, you can bring this up directly with, county council and go through their process of requesting it, just like, you know.
We would, yeah.
Like the rate study, you know, we asked for that initially to be done the second week of November.
We didn't get it until February, so we do have here, if I chime in. So I asked this question because I know that you've been asking to schedule a work session. And what I heard back from my boss, the Deputy Public Works Director, is that commissions have the ability to submit what we call a 9-step, which we can get you a copy of that. It's a one sheet that makes the request to council, and then it goes to council time. And then the council will discuss the request, and then they will approve if it gets put on a work session. And on the calendar. And so that request can be submitted through Kristen Phillips, and as a follow-up to today's meeting, we can get you the 9-step request, and then the paperwork that you can then submit to Kristen. So it does take about a month to schedule. So if you are wanting to get in front of the council in April, either ahead of or March, then you'd want to be submitting that request as soon as possible, or you can submit it in early March and still be able to get on in time in April.
Probably after
So,
the meeting.
just real quick, Alejandra, just a couple quick questions. So, for I guess logistics, because you would bring the report back in April for the rest of this body to vote on it. So we probably wouldn't be able to present in front of council the report till May, June.
I would guess like last year.
Does that sound right? Okay, just checking my assumptions there.
I would think.
You can also take it to council to present on it ahead of your vote. Like a lot of the things we've been doing is going to get their input, provide overview, and then you have the chance to incorporate any input, especially if you combine it with the 2024 work plan, and then you could bring it to a vote to finalize afterwards. That's up to you.
Well, I guess I don't know, Bob, how you feel, because I assume that you would want input from the rest of the commission, and that would have to take place via email, which creates some public meeting.
That would be preferable, yeah. So of course, part of the confusion here comes from previously the division. I can't remember who the acting fellow, we've gone through a series of acting folks. He had put us on the commission route through this approval process and had told us that it was coming, so that now you're saying basically that's non-existent and you're back to square one and you get to start this over.
What I'm sharing with you is what I heard from my leadership when I asked, how can commissions request work sessions? And I was told that you have the right as a commission to submit a 9-step work session request directly to Kristen Phillips, who is Kathleen Otto, our county manager's assistant, and she works directly with council. So you have the authority and autonomy to make those requests.
So I think if I can suggest to the chair that we should go ahead and make that request and make it twofold, that we would make it to present our draft of our proposed work plan and ask their input, and at the same time ask for their, if any additional thoughts or willingness to take a look at a draft of a revision of the county code that addresses how the commission works.
Okay, I think that sounds good to me, but I think those would have to be two separate requests because, right? Because the county administrative office is not gonna even entertain the idea without that form, the 9-step form.
You could, the
I
9-step,
don't know.
you're requesting time.
I've seen the 9-step
Yeah.
form.
So you could say, it depends on how much time you need. So if you want an hour, you could request an hour. If you want to be strategic and try to do 2 15 minutes or 2 30 minutes. I got 30 minutes for the rate study.
But the annual report doesn't need a 9-step form,
Yes.
or does it?
If you're going to present it to them, if you want to present it to them, then it depends on what you want to achieve. So the work session request is anytime you want to get in front of council to talk about something, you have to submit that request. And so it depends on what your goals are and how you want to use your time. If you want to get in front of them to present what you achieved in 2023 and also to present what you hope to achieve in 2024 and talk about the code update all in one, I think that would make total sense, and then that there would be some
Okay.
congruency in that message.
How about this, because Alejandra's been patient, but can you just send out the 9-step form?
Yeah, of course.
So we have it,
And then we'll give you Kristen Phillips'
That's great.
email, and then,
and we can deal with it.
we can also
in the
send you the schedule.
Okay,
Because there's like due date for when things need to be submitted in order to get on the council time to get a work session. It's challenging.
I don't doubt that, yeah, that,
And I think that's one of the reasons why we had done it, that the staff liaison has always done that as a courtesy and as a support for the commission, so that you didn't have to.
Alejandra.
Yeah, oh, okay, I have a couple questions. I'm just wondering, is it normal procedure to present in front of council our annual report? Is that something that's happened regularly? And also, what's the intent with that? Is it to collaborate or to say this is the good work that we've done?
So the first answer is yes. It has been done regularly in the past. It was quite tardy last year. I want to say it's in our it's written somewhere.
Yeah.
And I think it is written as that we have, I want to say maybe it might be stuck in that old code.
I think it is in the old code.
Or the existing, I shouldn't call it the old code, it's the existing code, which is old. That's a better, and if you haven't reviewed that code for, actually, anybody, I mean, it's come up several times, but especially for the benefit of our new members, that it would be really beneficial to take a look at that existing code, which, Alice, did they get that as part of anything? I think it's 13.30.20, or, it's not easy to find.
It's in the handbook.
I'll
Is
send
it
to
the
you.
existing code?
Yeah, I think it's in the handbook.
I don't think they didn't receive a handbook.
Oh,
I didn't, I wanted to find out since everybody before didn't want to have a printed, so I wanted to find out.
How about, to make it easy, can you just send out the
I
existing
was
code?
planning on doing
Great,
that
thank you.
with the
Yep, great, thanks.
suggested changes.
So in that code, and I think you're right now, it's jogging my memory that it says we have to present to the council, actually says to the Board of Commissioners, which doesn't exist anymore. But we have to present to them the activities of last year, and it actually does mention a work plan, for the following year. So that's why we do it. As far as the second part of your question, what the benefit of it is, honestly, I don't know. I haven't seen a lot of benefit come from it personally.
You know, I think Devin's suggestion that this be consolidated is really what we ought to shoot for, because council's very, very limited work time is the constraint here. And it's very difficult to get anything, as Devin explained, to get anything in front of them in a timely manner. I think we consolidate all these things. We put the code amendment as part of our 2024 work plan. It's not a separate item, it's part of it. And we present that at the same time, at the same meeting. I think it's our best chance to have an audience with the council is to do it not serially, but in one meeting.
Yeah. Yeah, we came prepared to do that at last meeting, but there was some miscommunication. I'll just leave it at that. Yeah, your second question. Yeah, sure.
They come to me. For the code amendment or the code change, okay, so if the idea is that you want broader reach in terms of, you know, how you're able to support the benefit of water systems in the region.
Well, it's important to note that the existing code is written that way.
Okay.
We're not asking.
Did she finish her question?
Thank you. And so what I'm kind of teetering on is I'm wondering if you ended up having the flexibility to do something of that intent with holding that forum, right? The symposium, the Lacamas Lake Symposium. Are you not feeling like within written code, you then have that broader reach because you have an example of you being able to do the thing you were intending to do? Or do you have specific items, activities, projects in mind that you think you wouldn't be able to do under the current umbrella of code?
I'll try to answer this in two parts. First is, we did do the Lacamas Lake Symposium. And in the process of doing that, the internal Public Works Department opposed our doing it. In fact, at one stage, several of us commissioners were prepared to fund the symposium on our own. And because we thought it was well worth doing, the concern in the Public Works Department, I think, was twofold. One, it had the potential to obligate funds that they currently didn't have to activities that would be directed at the lake. And the second was it expanded the obligation or this group in their minds beyond the scope of the Clean Water Division. And so they were uncomfortable with that, and I understood that for some reason. But we felt it was important in a broader perspective to take into account the health and well-being of the whole watershed. And so the Lacamas Watershed Symposium was intended to bring together the various components for the county, the city of Camas. There's a number of other political entities, including the state ecology department, all have a finger in the pie. And it was, in our opinion anyway, worthwhile to try to get everybody to sit down, agree on a plan, agree on what the problem was. And the problem, as it turns out, is primarily the county's problem in what water is putting into Lacamas Lake. But it's the Camas' problem in trying to deal with Lacamas Lake itself. And so it turned out anyway that we felt that one of the roles that this commission can have is to facilitate sort of cooperation and coordination between various political entities to sort of achieve our role, which is health of watersheds in Clark County. As it turned out, I think that all worked out fairly well, and as Devin referred to it, there's new agreement between the county and Camas, and things are moving forward, and remedial actions are being looked at, and a better understanding of what the issue issues involved are. We have on our potential here of activities for what to focus on, building on the success I think a lot of people felt, and I don't want to speak for the other commissioners, but that a similar effort for Vancouver Lake would be beneficial. That again, we're dealing with something that in particular the county does not see as its responsibility. It's the city of Vancouver much more. But regardless, county is a contributor to some extent, and as are a number of other political entities, and of course there's a large number of nonprofits that also get their finger in this pie. One of the potentials we would have is, again, as the organizing body of the symposium that would bring all of these folks together, sit down in a room, go through the background science, and I think we have a very strong commitment on this commission that this is science-based, all science-based. And then we will sit down, we will go through, these are the contributing factors, these are the potential solutions, these are the entities, this is the kind of money that we'll be looking for to try to fix it. That's a potential activity for this group. And if we choose to take that before the commission and see whether there's buy-in or not, that's fine. There's a bunch of other things we could do. One of the things that came to light in the Lacamas Lake Symposium is really a lot of this comes down to phosphorus deposition. And that one of the things, and certainly one of our past commissioners, who one of you was filling the role of, was very much an advocate that we should be pushing for a phosphate ban, and that there are counties in Washington that have imposed such, and that serious studies of water quality in Clark County are suggesting that is the root problem that we should be looking to address. Obviously, when you start talking about chemical bans, a phosphate ban, this is politically charged. There's a lot of activity. Is this the direction we would want to go in? Is this a windmill we should attack? And I think that's a valid question. I think there's probably some other approaches to that, and I myself am a little skeptical of that. But at any rate, the idea is there's a much broader spectrum here than the stormwater pipes that run through the developments that are going in the county.
Yeah, and to add on to that, under the, when you read the code, I'm assuming you haven't had access to it, that what it was written, there was just a different, the language is antiquated. There was a different form of government. So it talks about us reporting to a body that really doesn't exist anymore. So the Board of Commissioners has been replaced by the county council. Now we have a county manager form of government. And as it was explained to us as well, some of the tasks outlined in there are now pretty explicitly covered under the permit. At least that was my understanding of the explanation to us. But Bob says I agree with it. It gives us a larger role. We just want to clean up some of that language. And part of it is that, you know, this, and you can kind of correct me because I think we've talked about this before. This body was really kind of born out of a lawsuit against the county, which the county lost. So, no,
that was,
no, I appreciate the correction.
that was a myth, I think, that got corrected.
Yeah.
Because, we brought it up at council. We're like, is that accurate?
No.
And and then, we got some feedback that.
They are actually, the commission was the one who actually created the $33 fee.
Clean water fee.
Okay.
And that was what, that's.
So this
that's-
wasn't the pre-permit lawsuit that we
No,
lost?
no.
So the code actually outlines that the Clean Water Commission was established to provide oversight to the Clean Water Division as they established the clean water fee, and to provide, which is relevant now.
But didn't
And
that come from the lawsuit?
no,
No?
the Clean Water
Okay.
fees are around since
1999.
2000.
Okay.
Yeah, so, 1999,
Okay.
2000. And so, I think there's a lot to unpack in what was just said.
Yeah.
The Clean Water Commission rule was originally fee-focused to make sure and to really provide that quality assurance that the fee was accurate, and then to provide council with recommendations as it pertains to the Clean Water Division's work. The Clean Water Division's work mainly being focused on meeting stormwater permit requirements,
Right.
which has been the regulatory driver for our work. And I think that we all can agree, at least in my heart, and the work I've done, is to look beyond just stormwater infrastructure in the
Yeah.
built environment, but at nature-based solutions, repairing, restoration, agricultural management, septic systems. So I'm totally for, like, if we can move beyond stormwater, fantastic. However, I don't want to lose especially with the relevance of the clean water fee, the original intent of this group.
Yeah.
There's a lot of important chances for you to influence what happens because of how the code is written now. I do think, though, there are still opportunities to update the code. So, like, I don't know what direction council will take on, right now, the division is meant to support and provide advisorship on the clean water division. I think where I would like clarity from all of you, if you see your authority expanding beyond our division, I think if so, that's a whole different discussion.
Yeah.
That I would be interested in having at some point. But I think I'll just pause because there's a big focus on this code. And and I think it's important to address and make those updates and establish a really solid work plan and priorities for the year. But I also want to make sure that, the Clean Water Commission that we're utilizing you to help advance a lot of the things that we need to achieve this year in this critical time where we have a council that's actually supportive of environmental topics. So I'm kind of like, we need to seize the day. And so I would just encourage you to be thinking as you're pursuing this code update. I would actually rather than encourage, I would ask you to please also be making sure that we are using that precious time with council to advance some of these bigger rate study and asset management things that we're talking about right now.
Sure, yeah, and thanks, I appreciate the clarification on the lawsuit thing, because I even came up at council, and then we even got some feedback.
That's how
Some community
rumors
feedback
spread.
back then, yeah, from a former Clean Water Commission,
Yeah.
right? I mean, a couple different ones, got some public feedback too, that, yes, that is correct. Am I interpreting that?
There were multiple, when you say clean water lawsuit, there've been multiple clean water lawsuits against the county. I think what the history shows, and I was incorrect, because I thought the same thing, I thought that
Okay.
the
Good, I'm glad to know I'm not the only
created
one.
as a result of a settlement of a clean water
Right.
lawsuit, but no, it predates that, and it goes back to when the clean water fee was established. There were subsequent clean water lawsuits against the county that were successful, the county lost.
Right.
And that's had some effect on how county regulations have been established and how the municipal permit has been administered. But the truth is that body was not created as a consequence of a Clean Water Act lawsuit.
Okay, that's helpful.
And that's part of the reason we always come back to the regulation, because at the end of the day, I know stormwater might not be sexy to everyone, and we'd rather talk about salmon, we'd rather talk about trees. Those things are all important. It's all connected, and we all know that. But if we're not able to be in compliance, then we get sued, which further takes away our funding to be able to do work. And those costs get passed on to ratepayers, because the last time we got sued, what they do is they increase the stormwater rate.
Okay.
So it's very challenging.
I feel like we've moved into number 6, new business. I feel like we're pretty good.
Yeah, I would love to hear your guys.
Bob and I don't want to cut off your number 5.
Can I make a comment? I saw you try to chime in, Phil. I just want to make sure there's space for you.
Well, some of it was answered. I was looking for maybe a little recent historical context on whether this code thing is like a big change, little change, is like the culmination of a process that's been going on for a couple of years. As a kind of a newcomer, I'm trying to kind of catch up to speed quick.
Yeah, we had broached the subject in a meeting with one of the county counselors and had received some initial support revising the code. So it's been ongoing for a couple of years, I think. Then Devin has given her impression of the existing code. I would ask that you read that code, which most of us have. And in our opinions,
Yeah, it's just a couple paragraphs. Yeah.
I can read it to you right now.
It's okay. Can I, if I,
Yep.
so is
Okay.
there a primer or a recording or a presentation of the proposed changes, because it sounds like an old conversation.
But that part's correct.
And so, just to ratchet back, there was talk about
I think we just said that.
presenting this to council before we vote on it here, but do we know what we're voting on? So,
there is a letter that you should also be aware of if you're not. I had hoped that those things were distributed during your orientation, but apparently they weren't. But this body did send a letter to council outlining what it felt would the components of a code revision would be. And so that in conjunction with the existing code, I think will probably help put you in a little better perspective on where this all sits and why this has been an ongoing issue for the commission.
Yeah, Alice, do we have access to that letter we sent to?
Yeah.
Not
Yeah.
right now, but
Yeah.
just to the group.
And just one thing, the emails can get intense, and so one thing we're working on is like coming up with like a SharePoint site where we can just have a repository of all this information, because I can't keep track of
Yeah.
documents in my email, so
Yeah.
just letting you know.
yeah. It'd be nice to just see it all in one place and just,
Yeah.
look at the proposed changes and then the existing code, and then maybe a brief conversation about what the intent is to get to with that language.
And the key to part of your statement is we have not actually proposed the code revision specifically. We have proposed council for their feedback, or these are the components we believe should be included. And what we're saying for this coming year is one of our goals would be to actually draft the new code for their consideration. And we would do such in conjunction with the Clean Water Division. My interpretation of the existing code is that it's a little more there's two components to it. There's one that is very clearly devoted to the Clean Water Division, but there's another portion of that code that is of a much broader context. And that's the part that seems to get lost sometimes. And that actually, for many of us with sort of an environmental bent, it's bothersome because it's really the bigger picture that is going to make or break things in the long. So, but at any rate.
So if we were to go through a code change, what's the steps of the county? Is that like a county attorney, or?
Who would prosecute? An attorney would have to do the actual drafting of the changes. We could provide some sample language that would go through the PA's office for final approval of KS to form. The language in the current language in the code does use the term surface water, which I think is what you're getting at, Bob. And the fact that it uses the term surface waters means that this body's jurisdiction or authority is not simply constrained to stormwater only. And so if the code didn't change at all, then I think we'd still have the authority to move ahead in the direction that this body has wanted to go over the last couple of years. But the code is adequate and does need to be updated.
Sure.
And I think it would just help the working relationship with the Public Works Division and to make clear which types of things go through the county administration and which things we're supposed to communicate directly with the commission. And at any rate, it just clean all that kind of stuff up. And then the other thing that truthfully you have to kind of put in perspective, I don't know how many boards that the county actually has. But my guess is that the code that applies to almost all of it is outdated for some of the same reasons. It's just the change in county government. So this is like the camel's nose under the tent, and I'm sure somebody is going to get worried. And God, if we start doing this one, how many of these we're going to have to do? So there's that issue hidden here too.
Well, but I have heard that in another county meeting that there was at least acknowledgement that commission, those codes need to be updated. So I don't think it's going to be news to anybody.
So we've kind of covered almost everything here in the.
Yeah. So, okay.
Well done.
So, well, yeah, I guess that, so, yeah, sounds like, it'd be nice, yeah. Sounds like it brings us to our work plan. Yeah, we have talked about most of these things. I'm not sure I don't know, is it realistic to be able to do all of them as a work plan? It seems,
Well, I think that realistically, we have to think, I mean, I served on the LACMAS subcommittee, and Roger really kind of led the charge, a fellow by the name of Roger Howie, those of you that are new. Hell of a nice guy, worked hard, was really passionate about LACMAS Lake, but he and I anyway met probably every other week for 6 months to try to get the thing off the ground and get it organized and get all the people together. And, like I said, at one term, we were digging in our own pockets to pay for it. And, finally, at the end, the county administration changed its approach, and the Clean Water Division stepped in and did really a fantastic job in actually conducting the symposium. And it went over well. I think it was successful, and I think I would defer to Ted here, being probably one of our resident experts on the situation on Vancouver Lake. Do you think that would be a benefit? Should that be part of our next?
Yeah, I think it would be, the LACMAS Lake Symposium was, I thought, immensely successful. It attracted a huge variety of people from different levels of government and private sector folks. And I think if we could replicate that with Vancouver Lake, it would be equally successful. But if I was looking at this in terms of priority, I would say that the first priority in terms of work plan for 2024 needs to be the support of the rates. I think that's fundamental to the body. I think that's the number one most important goal that we need to establish this year, because to the extent the rates can be substantially increased, that means that the broader picture that we all envision, that is surface water management, it can also be addressed, at least in some way, by the county. Right now, there's no funding for it, it's zero. So to me, that's the number one priority. I still would want to see a Vancouver Lake Symposium on our work plan as well, and I would be more than happy to be the point person on that. If
that's what we're looking
to happen.
Well, it sounds to me like we could pick some of these things off in a way. I see Devin just, thanks for volunteering. Number one, there's the rate support study. Devin?
I was just gonna mention that, we're not limited to these items.
Okay.
And I think at some point it would be interesting to hear just like a general, I don't know what your facilitation plan was, but like a general roundtable from, especially to hear from the new commissioners, what you think, and from Kate, who's online, to hear what you think are priorities or what's on your mind. Because these are just very general things.
Yeah, but these are things that we've been talking about, so we need to accomplish some of these things. I think for the Bob's clarity.
The rate study seems to make a ton of sense to me. I
Yeah.
think some of the stuff that I'm personally interested in wouldn't even get on the drawing board if the funding's not there. So that is,
Right.
So that's gotta be a
Okay.
top of the chart. I would agree with that.
Okay. Does anybody have any issue with not supporting the rate study support as part of our work plan this year? Okay. We already talked about code revisions, so I just want to try to get the low hanging fruit. Does anybody have, we've already done some work, as you've heard, on that, but as far as putting that on our work plan, does anybody have anything against that? The code revision? I know it's hard for some of you because you haven't even seen it, so. Or you may
No,
not have seen it, it may be difficult to chime in on that.
Yeah, I think once we're all on the same page, or at least have the same understanding of the parameters of it so that we could speak to it, vote to it, I think that's gonna be mission critical, especially if we all get behind it to, advance it.
Mhm. Okay, thank you. Other comments about?
May I ask who's there? Hello?
Okay. The Vancouver Lake Symposium, Ted, that sounds like, I'm just gonna hand that over to you.
Well,
as this comes up on the agenda, you'll be the spokesperson for it. Does that?
glad to do that. And as you all saw in the work plan that Devin put forward, there's an ongoing RFP right now to select a contractor who will work in conjunction with the Clean Water Division to refine and improve on what I call it version 2.0 of the Vancouver Lake Management Plan. Version 1.0 was completed last year. I'm not sure where it is right now. It should have been signed off, I think, by the county and ecology, but
It's out, it's live. We're hiring
Live?
somebody. Bob Chapman's on the evaluation team. We
Okay.
should have, applications are due next Wednesday.
okay. So it seems really relevant as this process is going forward with a more expansive and detailed lake management plan that symposium would really be a great benefit to that whole effort and getting people more, behind this project. Ultimately, what we're trying to do for you new members, when I say I'm speaking more or less on behalf of the Friends of Vancouver Lake, is we're trying to basically find the funding for a major public works project, primarily dealing likely with the flushing channel and the ability to get more water from the Columbia River into the lake and improve the water quality. And that's a fairly major undertaking, to say the least. But these are the starting points that you have to go through to get there. So I would be glad to work on the symposium and take the lead on it.
Okay, that was gonna be my follow-up question.
Okay.
Okay, and I know, so you would foresee it as similar to what we did with Lacamas Lake last year, something?
Yeah, I think we
similar?
try to follow the same format and would hope that Devin would again be our MC or our
Or you.
well, whatever. But, I think we can follow the format that we came up with in the symposium for Lacamas Lake, and it'll work very well for this one.
Okay,
And we have funding for it, I can
Okay.
say, within the RFP.
okay, and I assume as we kind of work through that as part of our work plan, there'll be opportunities for anybody on the commission to get involved if they so choose. We certainly don't have to. Okay. Environmental justice. Devin, I saw something in your paperwork about that.
Yeah.
And this has appeared on the agenda routinely, and we have done absolutely nothing with it. It's a good question. I don't have the answer to it. We just, seems like we can't get any traction around what we want to do related to environmental justice. That's my perception. I don't know others who've been here, why it hasn't moved forward. I think it's been on the agenda, every agenda for a year and a half.
Has there been any analysis of
No,
HA issues, community, overlay of stormwater, surface water?
not by this body. I can't speak to the county. Has there?
As far as stormwater and environmental justice issues, not that I am aware of as of now. However, we have a pollution prevention assistance program where Alice will be leading the charge on developing an environmental justice plan that needs to be done by mid-year, which will identify the highest priority areas to work with pollution-generating business owners to provide technical assistance. And as well as within our new stormwater permit, we are, not that this is the driver, because we should always be doing these things, but we now are having to develop methodology that outlines how we will reach environmental justice communities and then provide updates to ecology about how we're reaching them. And so that work, we needed to do this for a long time. Now we have to do it. And so we are at the beginning of establishing what are those methodologies for identifying communities, how are we going to reach out to them? Are there community-based organizations that we need to develop partnerships with? Are there ways that we can incentivize and lower the barriers to participate? So those are all things we've been talking about at a staff level. As far as how the commission wants to be involved, I think that's up to you to establish in your work plan. But I think it would be great to have involvement.
It feels like both, if I may, it feels like both environmental justice and holistic watershed health, those things kind of fall out of both an assessment and as well as code revision. So they kind of become an understanding point once we make an assessment as to what the condition of the system is. who it's failing, who it's supporting, are there places where it's breaking down? Those would come out of that assessment once we reach all those Rumsfeld questions, right? What do we know? What do we don't know? What we don't know, we don't know, that sort of thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
So hopefully that would come out of that assessment, and then we could start to look at, are different communities being impacted differentially?
Mm-hmm.
Are they having access? Is that part of our rate plan study, is how do we make sure that,
Equity.
yeah, exactly. So,
Mm-hmm.
and that's gonna come back to the code changes, because then you'll have those two goalposts in sight when we rework that language. Seems to me.
Great.
Mm-hmm.
And I would add, in the context of the rate study, you bring up a good point. One of the things in our rate structure that we're taking a look at is that larger lots, that as your lot size goes up, the lower your fee gets. And for multifamily, you're charged the rate based on the number of housing units. However, one could look at that and ask, does that incentivize density and putting more units into buildings for more affordable housing? So these are things that we're starting to even look at in our rate study and our rate structure, and ask ourselves, is that really the right way to be assessing the fee? And so I think there's definitely equity components. And from a Vancouver Lake perspective, I'll just wrap it up by saying Port of Vancouver reached out to me today and asked, how are you considering EJ and future lake work, whether, unintended consequences of lake treatment on Fruit Valley, or if we establish a flood control district and start assessing revenues for lake management, how does that impact people who live in those floodplain areas? So there's a lot to be unpacked and talk about and establish how we address those issues, because there isn't a roadmap or decisions made yet.
Yeah, there's a lot of work to be done in this area, that's for sure. I guess, Bob, for the work plan, do we have enough here?
It would help to hear the
Yeah.
rest of this prioritized. I understand and support the idea that really the rate study is the number one priority. The inference I've gotten is that the Vancouver Lake Symposium would be the second, and that the code revision would be ongoing in that what we have done, that environmental justice really becomes a component of all of those activities. And that, what else, the holistic thing, the one thing that I do know, and Roger's memory, I will offer up once again, is whether or not we do anything with a phosphate ban or education, or how we approach phosphate in the county.
Well, it would be, Alice asked about, special meetings or having it during a regular presentation, but having a detailed analysis or presentation about phosphorus by staff or by outside experts or something, I think to me that would be a very beneficial subject to delve into in a lot more detail.
I'm sure Roger would volunteer. Roger, if you're listening.
He would, yeah.
Well, it's interesting, and I can't recall which of the commissioners first suggested, but apparently there's some phosphorus limiting component to some of the stormwater treatment, that there's some kind of filter. But the efficacy was unknown and believed by some to be essentially ineffectual. And there are others that appear, I don't know enough details about this. So if we do have a special meeting and devote it to phosphorus issues, it would be good to learn a bit more about what the potential is for that.
And just to add, so today at our work session, Activist Lake, we talked about a commitment for Camas and the county to work together on legislative priorities. And one of the things that we called out was establishing shared legislative goals around phosphate bans, because any long-term changes in law would have to come from our state legislature or at a federal level. And so we acknowledge that that work will likely need to be done in partnership with our legislative delegation, and really those policies established by council. So I do see both of those things being tied to very intrinsically tied to our Vancouver Lake and Lacamas Lake work. As far as the phosphorus removal, so for our new commissioners' awareness, one of the things that we know we can influence as a stormwater department is that there are different cartridges that you put into stormwater facilities that have better what they call polishing layers, which is like there's media of different soil types in these cartridges that has the better affinity to remove and bind to phosphorus. Some cartridges have that, some don't. And so we are making a commitment as a stormwater-focused division that we know that we can inventory and swap out and make that capital investment in Lacamas and in the Vancouver Lake drainage. That we can say, okay, we've done that. That's, I don't want to say it's low-hanging fruit, but it is one of the biggest areas that we can influence because of we have ownership of those public facilities. So I do see both of those topics being very much linked to Vancouver Lake and Lacamas Lake topics. So depending on if you want to call it out as like we're going to talk about phosphorus versus we're going to talk about lake, I would look to you for that. I think, do you want to have a dedicated focus on phosphorus, or do you want to talk, or is our focus on Vancouver Lake or Lacamas Lake? Or just lakes in general, which is very tied to the rate study because we need money for lakes. We don't have any.
Well, phosphorus is the common denominator for most of these problems. That's why I was suggesting it as a topic, general topic, and since it affects all of our waterways one way or another in our watershed.
It does.
Okay. So I'm trying to formulate this as our annual progress report and what we're going to suggest for a work plan. So our work plan is going to be that we're going to focus on assisting the Clean Water Division in establishing a more reasonable and functional rate system or up the rate study is being the top priority that we have. In addition, the Commission is going to focus on organizing a Vancouver Lake Symposium similar to the one that we held last year for Lacamas Lake. The idea that we'll bring the same sort of concept of bringing the various components together to share information and settle on a way forward. That we will as well after that. And during that process, we will work on code revision that embodies the charge to this commission to engage in these types of activities now and perhaps however we care to phrase that. And that as part of these activities, we will do our best to incorporate the needs for environmental justice and a holistic watershed management approach to our activity with the county, and that's basically what will be included as our work plan.
Just a comment, it seems to me that, I think, Devin, you mentioned this, level of service alternatives that you're working on, and that's a direct link to what you're talking about with this code update, which is like, you have certain expectations of services that are going to be delivered, right? The level of service to the community. And there's the low, there's the high, and the medium. And this code initiative is not residing in the low level of service, it's in the higher. So that might be something for the commission to dig into a little bit and work with Devin. Is, you know, what is the definition of these level of services that you are going to use to establish your rate, so that when the commission, not the county commission, hears this, they understand, you know, what the trade-offs are, and, you know, how the code relates to the rate, and services that are being provided. So just a thought.
All right, well, I will try to put a draft together along with Alice's help sometime in the next few weeks, and with a goal that we would have a draft that we would approve as a council at the April meeting.
Okay.
Can I just make sure, because we haven't heard from Jeff or Kate, and then also for our newer commissioners, just to make sure that you guys are able to share, like, what you're, if there is anything else you're thinking about beyond this list. Curious. Do you want to share?
I don't have anything beyond this list. This list is, gonna keep us extremely busy.
Well, this wasn't
Actually-
finalized yet, Deb. But go
I have
ahead,
a
Kate.
question. Yeah, I have a question. Yeah, so Devin, I saw on the list, of what's happening with the Public Works Department, is like updates to the NDPES, the pollutant discharge elimination system. And I was curious if that includes, or if there's any directives with the county that include sampling for 6-ppd quinone. And I asked because I spoke with somebody at the Department of Ecology who's up in the Seattle area, and she mentioned that they're doing a pretty big sampling campaign up in like Puget Sound, and the more general, the broader Seattle area. And it does seem pretty relevant to Clark County, given that a lot of our, like you said, salmon are, sort of a hot topic, sort of like a sexy topic, but given that a lot of our restoration and efforts are sort of directed at bringing salmon back to streams or getting streams into a condition that would support salmon. I was just curious if there is any discussion about sampling for that as part of our stream monitoring program with the Public Works Department.
Kate, I really love that question. Thank you. And I think that demonstrates that you're following a lot of the trends in stormwater. So for those of you who may not be familiar with it, 6-ppdq is the pollutant that they've found is associated with tire wear that is causing lethality in salmon. And so where do tires come? What's our connection? Roads. And managing stormwater from roads is the first line of defense, as well as street sweeping, our program overseas through 6-ppdq. So I think you are spot on, Kate. As far as sampling, I am not aware of anything in our permit that requires us to do 6-ppdq sampling. I wouldn't be surprised if that comes. I will say that, so I appreciate you also bringing up the division plan for the year, because I think I would have loved to spend a little bit more time going through some of those details with you guys. But Clark County, we lead the Lower Columbia Urban Streams Monitoring Network, which is a fund that all the stormwater permittees in the Lower Columbia pay into. And then Ecology actually contracts back with us, and then we implement that study. And that whole study is focused on the effectiveness of stormwater pollutant removal, and is our permit requirements working? And so right now we have the ability to scope out future studies, and there's some flexibility in the budget to create new studies. So I appreciate you bringing up 6-ppdq, because I can take that back to the team and let you know that that it was mentioned tonight, and see if they have any thoughts about incorporating that sampling into our future work, because I do think that's where our regulatory authorities will be heading.
So where
Okay,
does that
great,
type
yeah.
of monitoring come from? Does that come down from Ecology, that they say, if you want your permit, you need to monitor for these things?
Yeah, so within our permit, they could say what we have to monitor for and where.
Is that typically where it comes from, though? Is Ecology driven downward?
Correct, through
Okay.
our stormwater permit. And then we're really lucky that we have really great monitoring staff. I'd say it's probably one of the secrets of our division is that we have 5 Boston scientists that are out collecting tons of data all the time and developing studies and quality assurance plans. So I will need to follow up with them to see what they're thinking about in regards to 6-ppdq.
The study that Kate was referring to was done primarily in central Puget Sound. and it primarily dealt with coho salmon, which seemed the most susceptible to this particular kind of pollutant in terms of mortality. So it's not surprising it would start up there. You know, when it gets down here, we have to find out where those, do we have any salmon-bearing streams anymore? You know, you look at Lake River and Salmon Creek, and they're pretty negligible, but nonetheless, it's something that can't be ignored. It's a real serious pollutant that has to be dealt with. I was gonna ask you about we didn't talk at all about the capital plan. You've got the 6-year capital plan update, and you've also got the 2025 stormwater management plan, which I'm assuming will be coming to this body well in 2024.
Yes, and I do want to just circle back on the salmon. We do have salmon-bearing streams in Clark County, and there is tons of money and efforts being invested into them. And the first line of defense for 6-PPDQ removal is bioretention. So we do have a direct opportunity to influence removal of that pollutant. I saw you looking like you were going to chime in there.
Oh, yeah, Salmon Creek is actually a stronghold for coho salmon.
Really?
Yeah,
Coming up like River?
strangely enough, yeah. Lots of them. So I think the Cowlitz tribe just got a big chunk of money to do probably massive projects along Salmon Creek.
On county property.
So there'll probably be millions of dollars flowing in.
Is it a mixture of tree and unclipped, or is it all
I don't think there's a hatchery on Salmon Creek. so
Yeah,
they have
there
to
isn't,
be-
but there wasn't one on the East Fork, and they used to put
Right,
hatcheries
right,
inside in
right.
there for a long time, but. yeah.
Gorilla salmon hatcheries, right, yeah. These are natural origin coho coming
Okay.
in, yeah. I'm sure there's a percentage of strays, I don't know the
Right,
numbers,
I'm
but,
curious.
yeah.
But going back to your question, I'm sorry. So, there is a lot happening on, capital planning this year and also on our, stormwater management plan. So we're required to put out a stormwater management plan every year that outlines, how we're gonna implement our permit requirements just for that year. It doesn't look at the full duration. That is due every year in March. And so we're working on that right now. And as far as we talked about, how do we, meaningfully incorporate public involvement into that? And, we realized that we couldn't meaningfully and authentically do that this time. However, we've committed to using this full year to obtain input for the 2025 stormwater management plan, as well as looking at ways to make that a more approachable document, because right now it's like 200 pages long or something crazy, and Vancouver's is 25 pages. So we have some revisioning around what our stormwater management plan looks like. As far as the capital plan, that is usually done, we do a 6-year capital plan every year. That has to be approved by council. That needs to be completed by November. Historically, that is one of the main elements where we could be doing and should be doing public involvement. My understanding is that there has not been a lot of public involvement, so we plan to begin our public involvement process on the capital plan in May. So that is another opportunity where it's not a commission event, but if you wanted to come to the open house and provide input on the capital plan and just be there as a commissioner, and hear what the public has to say. We are, planning to host a series of, open houses this year to, improve our public involvement. Because you guys have been our main source of public involvement. I know you represent diverse interests across the county, but we want to get into the neighborhoods and hear the people who aren't, able to participate on boards and commissions as well. Did that answer your question? Thank you. You'll be happy to hear we applied to do an urban forestry assessment and forest management plan for the first time in Clark County, and we should hear if we.
I was on the meeting, I heard that.
Good.
And then probably need to talk in terms of the last time this came up. The city of Vancouver does it every 10 years, but Clark County has not been interested in participating. They were offered and chose not to. But-
The first one this year.
When we pool resources together, the cost comes down. It makes sense to try and tie these together. We got some great data from 2002 countywide. No one bothered to look at the data. It's there.
Write that down.
It's on my
So-
computer if you're interested.
So it looks like we have pretty busy work plan, but for Bob's benefit, it's so graciously drafting this. I'm definitely supportive of aggressive work plan. So is there anything else that's not on here that, Alejandra, yeah?
You can take up so much space.
No, it's okay.
I think I think hopefully part of this question is just to, talk about what we hope to bring forward when we join
Mm-hmm.
the commission. And yeah, I really hope to see more. We talk about the science basis of everything we do, which science is my background as well. Absolutely, right? It's the foundation of things. But when we talk about environmental impact, that also means humans. That's who we're servicing, and that's also who we need buy-in from to make a large portion of these movements that we're hoping to make happen. So I have interest in pushing forward something like culturally informed education and outreach. I think there are a lot of communities that have no idea about what it is that's going on, and we could only serve to benefit from having their buy-in in the things that we're hoping to do. So I think that could tie into a number of things, right? Like in the Vancouver Lake Symposium, who are we tapping into? There's so many great community-based organizations in the region, and tapping into our original land stewards, the native community in the region. I just think that there's a lot that can be said and done, and I don't know that we necessarily need to call this out as a specific work plan goal, but I hope to advocate that we plug that into every aspect of our goals.
Okay, great, thank you.
And can I just ask a clarifying question? Because I think this is really important. When you are talking about efforts to increase our culturally informed education and outreach, do you see that as separate or related to environmental justice? Because they are there's some nuance.
There is nuance there. Again, I think it's something that is interwoven in that. I don't think that to say that because we're doing culturally responsive education and outreach, we can tick the box and say, we did it. We did environmental justice. I just think it's one aspect. It's an avenue for us to get somewhere in the environmental justice realm.
Thank you.
So you mentioned there were no specific actions that you were, other than interweaving it throughout the work plan. Do I understand that correctly? Or?
That's correct, unless somebody else is like, put it in our plan. But yeah.
I see it as kind of one of those core value things of like, who are we reaching? If we have a symposium and it's just a bunch of, if it doesn't, and nobody from Fruit Valley shows up, like, did we really have a successful symposium?
Yeah, I see what you're saying. Another nonprofit I'm involved in, that one thing I'm really proud about is as part of our values, we're very explicit that the science we call out as Western science, but also alongside that, traditional ecological knowledge, because we use both of those together to move forward. That's something I don't think is really called out in the county. Yeah, I definitely could be wrong. I'm open.
I think
I
you're
would
spot
have
on.
drawn my experience in Alaska with Alaska Natives and setting regulations that were in place for subsistence harvest. And we actually had a component for traditional knowledge, and it worked out well. I mean, it was actually built into the process. So, yeah, I think we should be doing probably more of that too. The question in the back of my mind is and I tend to be kind of linear in my thinking, if that's not obvious already, but what do we as a commission envision? Is there an activity that you envision that would help us accomplish this, or is this part of everything? What I'm hearing right now is part of everything, but we don't really see a specific thing we're going to do
Yet.
yet.
I've got plenty of ideas.
Okay,
Maybe
great.
in the future.
Okay.
And I
Done.
think there's some things that if we can always follow up and find ways to use your ideas to we're building a lot of those programs. So even if it's not a commission priority, we can hear yourself from a staff perspective.
Okay. Great. Other comments around the work plan? Other items, tasks, concepts that we Don't be shy.
I think there's a lot there.
No, there
There's a lot
definitely is,
that
but I said I
happened there.
support a robust, aggressive plan.
You've got one.
Okay. All right, okay.
Can I ask a question? Is that okay?
Yeah.
I'm wondering, so, I put together this thing, to try to outline some of the big milestones, and I'm not gonna go through it for the sake of time, but specifically call out where we know we have the Clark County Council milestones, RFPs, some Clean Water Commission or other key staff project milestones. I guess what I'm hearing, what I would like to hear from the commission is, what are your expectations, at these critical points for how we bring information to you? Because our goal, and I'm asking that because my goal is to bring anything that's coming to you or going to council to the commission ahead of it going to council. However, I'm not really seeing a lot of space for that in your work plan. And so I would just like to know what your value is for, being involved in our other projects and things that we're working on, and how you want us to bring that information to you. And maybe that's a bad question, but.
I would say, I guess I'll use my privilege as my position here as chair to speak first. I would offer that keeping us informed is definitely always appreciated. And then if there's a place where we can offer support, assistance, guidance, advice, whatever it might be, we can talk about it then. That's my view, but does anybody else have contrary or something in addition, or?
I guess that kind of fits my way of thinking on this too, in that at every meeting, we have an update where I would expect you will communicate activities, and I would hope anyway that you will make suggestions either where you think we can help, or if there's something you think that we should or could offer some meaningful input on. I'm not sure which issues those would be, that you would be specific about those and bring those to us. And I assure you, at least from my perspective and my understanding of all the time I've spent on this commission, that I think we would do anything we could to help, and to whatever extent you need us to do that. I've learned a few lessons about some of this stuff, and one of them is we can't write a letter of support for you and send it through you and really hope it gets to where it's gonna go.
That's not fair to say. I'm sorry. I'm going to say that is not fair. You know, that was a complicated situation, and I'd be happy to unpack what he's referring to.
Well, it's
That
difficult.
was, I feel like that was not a great characterization of my character.
It was, no, it isn't. And I don't think it had anything to do with you at all. I think it's your county administration. But we were asked for input on the rate study. Ted and Matt wrote a letter to suggest what they felt was the best way, or the commission sent, which was never communicated. I don't think that's your fault. But I do think that we learned that if you bring us an issue like that, and we really want to have input into it, that it can't be funneled back through your system.
I would ask that we challenge that assumption because of that unique situation. The thing we were requesting never left the county manager's office. It never got to the council.
Right.
It never made it out of the budget. So there was it wasn't appropriate to take that to council because the county manager wasn't moving it forward. So I would ask that you give me another chance to earn your trust, and to please not think that's representative of my character and how I conduct business.
I never thought of it as your individual choice,
Yes,
but
thank you.
Other comments about Devin's question or responses to it? About information flow?
Well, I'd hate to hold anything up, but I would like to know about things as they arise,
Yeah.
so.
Yeah.
I mainly asked just because there's a lot happening in April. And I know our April, we talked about working on the annual report, but I do want to make sure that we're looping you into the stormwater rate study as well as progress on our Heritage Farm wetlands installation. We're also having an open house with an HOA that has a failing stormwater facility that we're trying to fix. And we're also launching 2 new RFPs for facility maintenance services and project engineering, and establishing a new interlocal agreement for stormwater partners work. So I just wanted to say, let's find some balance, because that's a lot, and I want to make sure you're informed. So as we continue to develop the meeting agendas, if we can make space to make sure we're talking about those division milestones, that would be my request. That's all.
Like, on average, what is your time commitment there in a meeting? Yeah.
I guess it's what you want to prioritize.
Well, how much time would you need for your, on average, just as an estimate in the future?
I guess, it would be helpful now that you guys have this tool to identify the things you want a more robust update on versus where, we can provide it in writing ahead of time, or if there are things you don't want us to cover versus, and so I will look to the commission to help us establish what you want us to take a deeper dive into. And we can spend, it's really how you guys want to spend your time. I just want to make sure we're keeping you informed on those critical milestones that we're working towards.
Okay. I would say, written documents ahead of time help, but they also create a lot of work. So I don't want to create a lot of work for you. And then it's also for the other commissioners. If you write it, I would expect they read it, and that creates additional work for everybody at the table. So does anybody have an opinion here, a strong opinion, other than let's just try it out, maybe?
So for April, what is in
April?
April, I know we were going to talk about
The rate study, we've spent a lot of time talking about that, so it makes sense to me to continue hearing about that. I would say maybe around RFPs, I'm guessing, more of a high level discussion or information flow that in these RFPs, and this is why, and this is what it's related to, and if the commissioners have questions, then they have questions, and we just take it as far as that goes. We're the charge of this body.
Yeah, I guess from my perspective, it's more like when you're putting the RFP together, do you want the review of the commission? Would you be seeking any input into it? I mean, we really don't have any role in the administrative parts of putting RFPs on the street, and the selection process is probably something we're not likely to be involved in either. So it's kind of like our role in a lot of this stuff would seem to be preliminary.
Yeah.
that was helpful.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Okay, I guess, Bob, is that what you need for your, I want to make sure before I move on. Okay, thanks, and again, I want to publicly thank Bob for taking on all this work that we're having him draft. Before we adjourn, final, comments, roundtable discussion, anything for good of order, anything that anybody is really burning to talk about or say?
I just want to thank our new commissioners. There's a lot in this meeting. I hope you're excited to dive in to your 3-year term and that we can keep you. Really excited to see where your thought leadership takes us and how you connect with all the others. I encourage you to to meet with each other one-on-one, to get to know each other. We do not encourage you to, you can't meet. If you meet with over 4 of you, then it's a forum and it has to be a public meeting. So but other than that, have coffee with each other, get breakfast, get to know each other. I think that is really helpful, especially since we're only meeting every other month. And there's a lot that happens in between our meetings. So other than that, I just want to thank you for your time. Thank you to Kate for being online. Anyone else?
That was an interesting first meeting.
Yeah.
Well, good.
Yeah.
Lot to unpack it there.
Thank you.
See how passionate folks are about what we're
Absolutely.
here about. That's the reason we're all here.
Good.
Excited about it.
All right, well, we're definitely very excited that you have decided to join us. So, thank you. If there are no final comments, I'll go ahead and adjourn the meeting. Thanks, Kate.
Right at 8:30. Good time.
Thank you.
Alice,
Good night.
Good night.